I knew at a certain point what career pivot I wanted to make, I was like, well, if this job is offering me more money and I need more money, then let me just take it. You need to be patient and be diligent about what you're actually seeking, and it will come to you, but you again have to do well with what you have now and know that your turn is coming. I'm just like, I'm grateful for you for creating a platform like this that again allows us to have real conversations, to be seen, to talk about our journey in a way that is authentic and not just the cutesy parts of it, right? Like the real deal, and also inspire people in a way that shows you can do it too.
Perfect, ma'am. We are in session. We are recording.
Okay,
How are
great.
you? How are you doing? We haven't caught up in a long time.
I know. I'm doing well. It's just a very busy season between work,
Mm-hmm.
personal things, obviously all of the adulting things that we try to keep up with, like relationships, friends, taking care of ourselves. So I can genuinely say I am in a good place and I feel very content with where I'm at. It's just I think I've had the most I've had on my plate ever. And
Ooh.
so trying to manage those things while also, taking care of yourself, I think is what I'm trying to focus on right now. And not really like balance per se, but more so like what are the priorities at this time?
Ooh. Okay. Well, you sound like you're in a. I don't want to call it transitional season, but
Mhm.
you're trying to figure out the things, adulting, life,
Yeah.
all the things. Well, I want to thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to be on my podcast, my little old podcast that I'm trying to grow
Yeah,
and
girl.
turn into something. I so appreciate you for even just making the time for this. And I'm so excited for the conversation today. And I'm so glad you reached out because you are actually someone I had my eye on anyway.
I appreciate that.
Yes, because I think I met you right before your transition into going into entertainment. You were trying to like get out of what industry were you in? Healthcare?
Yeah, healthcare advertising. Not
Yes, girl, you were in healthcare. I met you during that season, and I
yeah,
know you so wanted to transition into something a little bit more your speed and more fun for
yeah.
you. And so, I had my eye on you anyway. I felt like your story should be told, and I feel like you have something to offer. And you've
Thank
also
you.
curated this awesome network, and I think it's so important for creatives to do so. So I'm happy to have you on, and
No,
so
I'm
let's do
also
this.
I'm also very excited when I saw what you were doing and again what you're trying to spotlight and the conversations you're having. I think that there's a lot of importance and promise we need to place on the journey versus just like, oh, we've arrived or we see these people and they've, reached the mountaintop or they've done these great things. Or you think about when people first started out, but nobody really talks about what's happening along the way and how you just got to like the cool thing or the fun thing or the exciting thing. So I think what you're doing is really great in terms of let's actually talk about the journey because that's what most people want to know about.
Yeah, and it's actually something that people should know because I feel like a lot of creatives, I was having this conversation the other day, a lot of creatives, or not a lot because I don't know everybody, right? But I feel that there is a season in your creative journey where you want to give up completely. And a lot
Mhm.
of us do. And then some of us know how to push through,
Right.
And so talking to people like yourself and other creatives and having them on and talk about they're in between and getting to the other side of that, hopefully will spark inspiration for other people. I
Right.
feel that it's essential for us to know and not just see the ending. So, yeah,
Yep.
I'm excited.
Yep.
So, before we get into your pivot and you leaving healthcare and going into entertainment and enjoying all the things, I would love to go back a little bit. So, what did you originally imagine your career to look like when you
Hmm.
first graduated college? You're
Oh,
fresh
girl.
out here in these streets, and how close do you think you are to what you actually imagine for yourself?
So originally, I thought I was going to be a PR girly. My background was in strategic communications, and I was kind of presented with two options when I graduated of either, well, actually, I guess three that I also saw. One was grad school right after. One was going to work at one of the big like PR agencies, like a Ketchum, a Weber Shandwick, a Edelman. And then the third option was really trying to work, within the brand side. And I felt very limited, I think, in terms of like what my options were. And I also knew what the big markets were. So it's like your options were either to do those paths and to either go to LA or to New York. And I had actually did a semester in LA. It wasn't necessarily for me in terms of living long term. But I ended up getting an opportunity that brought me to New York, like literally a month after I graduated. And from there, I did a PR internship, and I quickly realized this was not the industry for me. These were not the people for me. And it just wasn't an environment that I really felt like I could be successful in. And so I had actually applied for a fellowship my senior spring and literally heard nothing. And then once I had moved to New York, did the internship, the fellowship reached out to me and said I got an interview. And that fellowship is really what got me into advertising. And it opened up a whole nother world of opportunities in terms of like working with brands, working in marketing, you know, working in PR, working in influencer marketing. And so there were so many more options opened up to me, which is what I was looking for in terms of like, okay, I got this degree, but where else can it take me and what other skills can I utilize? And so quickly from that moment, I realized I didn't have to stay in public relations. I could work in advertising, and I could also work for brands doing activations, marketing, campaigns, media campaigns. And so that just kind of blew my mind and exposed me to so much other things. And then I think also just being in New York and realizing these people that are our age are starting their own collectives, groups, party series, organizations, and you can just have an idea and do it. You know, you don't have to have this like huge following or this big backing. You could just start an idea and move with it. And that also sparked my interest in wanting to work in events full time and realizing I really like connecting people. So I think in terms of where I started to where I'm at, I really thought I was going to go down this path and be like this big publicist and, you know, work with great talent and all and do these, you know, great campaigns and get placements for them. But it ended up shifting me into more of an advertising, working on commercials, working with big brands, working with media partners, and then segueing me really back to a full circle moment where I'm helping brands activate, create experiences for people, connect people, but also do events, which is something that I'm very passionate about, and creating memorable moments for consumers to interact with. So I would say now being in this role, it does feel full circle in the sense that like I'm touching on a lot of different skill sets that I didn't realize I would have to tap into for this role. But I don't feel limited anymore in the sense that what I thought I was going to go into, I didn't, but it still served a purpose in the end.
So what about PR was it didn't resonate with you? What about it was like, I don't think this is really the one for me. I got to go in another direction.
Yeah, to be quite honest, it was the environment. I was working with a lot of um, Caucasian women who
Okay.
were in positions of power who I felt didn't know how to manage someone like me. And I don't think they had worked with a lot of diverse talent. And I just think the environment was a bit like mean girl culture. And it felt very cliquish. So I just think for me, it wasn't a conducive learning environment. And then realizing like who dominates the environment, and there wasn't that much space for someone like me. I wasn't really seeing people in a lot of positions of leadership. It also seemed like it took a long time for people to get promoted and get opportunities for advancement. And I knew the trajectory I was on. And like when I first started out, I was very much like networking girly, all the events, like trying to get my resume out there, LinkedIn, add me. And I was very much in this like networking hustler phase where I was convinced I was going to be like somebody's CMO or, you know, chief public relations officer. So I'm like, these people are in my way. You know, they're also not trying to, they're not invested in my success. I'm just another body to them. And so it just wasn't an environment that was conducive for me, truthfully. And I've, you know, talked to other people, and I have friends who are in the industry who love it and thrive. But I just think for me and what I needed at the time, it wasn't a positive learning environment.
So you discovered that this wasn't for you. You moved on, you made your transition. So where did you end up going after that? After that job or after that fellowship in that
Yes.
experience? Where did you end up going?
So I ended up working at an advertising agency named Havas, and I got to work on some very large brands and retailers that we all know and love. And this was also during the COVID era. So I was doing my fellowship. I had moved to New York in summer 2019. And then literally as we were going to our last rotation in March, that's when COVID hit. So I ended up going back home to North Carolina and was back and forth basically for a year. And at the beginning, I didn't have a job because this is also when there was a job shortage. And so eventually I ended up thankfully getting a job there working in account management, which is essentially what I work in now in client services. So I started out working, you know, at the very most junior level, doing a lot of administrative, taking notes, making trackers, sending emails. But it taught me a lot, and it was definitely difficult transitioning into the workforce at the start of COVID when I had experience working, fully in the office. But it was just one of the situations where like I was grateful to have a job. And at the end of the day, my goal doing that fellowship was just to get my foot in the door so I could get out of my old career. And so that's really the purpose that it served. And I ended up after that job not staying that long. And that's how I also got into healthcare advertising. So really the fellowship helped push me into advertising, and then put me into a whole different industry, again, working in healthcare advertising, which I thought I was going into something that I really would enjoy, but it ended up not being what I expected. So I would say I hit like two moments in my career where it was like, here's what you thought you were going to get. Here's what you actually got. You're in it now. And then it's like, okay, I want to transition. Then it's like, okay, something else comes along. It seems great as well. Now I'm in it. I don't really love it. So there were definitely two periods where, I was grateful for the opportunity, but I ended up feeling stuck for a significant period of time. And that was really tough. But, I'm grateful for the fellowship and the opportunity because it allowed me to transition out of that industry into another. And again, helped me realize like, you can maximize your skills in different fields, arenas, industries, verticals. You just need different opportunities and exposure.
Yeah. And it's a great thing that you learned that very early on in your career so you can make that pivot. Because sometimes we're working in our jobs, or sometimes people are working in their job for like 3-4 years.
Right.
They've made it all the way to like mid-level, senior level, and they're like, I no longer want to do this, which is okay.
Yeah.
And it might come for either one of us, right? We might work something and realize we want to do something else, but you got to learn very early, I ain't like this, and I'm going to go try something else. And so you ended up at this healthcare company doing advertising. And so I'm just curious, that was a step before you got to make it to entertainment and working with, brands that you love and we all love.
Yeah.
What about that job and that season? Were you able to take skills or things that happened to you and apply them to your new job?
That's a great question. So I think in retrospect, what I learned in that season, that job, was the importance of having community in different places. I'm going to talk about community during our conversation a lot because that's something that I think is integral to who I am. But, a lot of people talk about how they navigate in the workforce. I do think as Black people, we have to navigate a bit differently. But that last job was the first place where I worked with a significant amount of people of color. And so for me, that was like a moment where I'm like, wow, you could have community at your job. And even if you're struggling or you're having a hard time, if you have that, that's another place where you could be lifted up where you need it. I think I also learned the importance of taking care of and doing a good job with the little that you have in order to get more responsibility. I'm also a very spiritual person, so I will also reference my faith a lot. And during that time, I really feel like I was in a waiting season spiritually and just in life where I thought I had what I wanted. And then once I did, it didn't end up being exactly what I envisioned. And I got kind of stuck and complacent in this cycle. I also felt very defeated because a lot of moments during that job period, I got passed up for promotions. I'm asking for more money. I'm asking for opportunities. And I'm being told, you're doing great, but not right now. Or it's coming, but it didn't come, or the moment passed, or the period came for, promotions and raises. And it's like, well, we think you need to work on X, Y, and Z. And so it was a lot of that, of just like being told you're doing great, but you're not doing good enough to get to where you're looking for. And so I felt very defeated at a certain point. But I think what helped me mentally was realizing like I wasn't even really doing the best job at what I had to do. So even though I didn't love what I was doing, even though I felt like some of the, the tasks were very like, not beneath me, but just like mundane, it was like at the end of the day, when God gives you something, you have to be a good steward over it, regardless of what the task is. And even when you don't like the task, that's not the point. That's not the lesson in it. It's like, I've given you this. What are you going to do with it? And that was another key lesson I learned, of just taking care of and doing things with a certain level of excellence or a certain attitude, and working with people in a certain spirit that they will never forget, irregardless of the task that you're doing. So if you email someone, and the email is crafted a certain way where the information is clear and concise, or you're a person that people can go to when they have answers, people don't forget things like that. Even if you're the most junior person in the room. And it got to a point where a lot of my team had ended up transitioning. And even though I was one of the most junior, I was the most tenured on the team because I had been on the brand the longest. And so it got to a point where people were coming for me with answer or with questions versus people who are more senior than me. And that also made me realize it doesn't, again, you have to be a good steward over what you have and do a good job at what you're working on. And people will see that and respect you, even when you don't really feel like the tasks that you're doing have that much significance. And then I think the last lesson that I learned is just the importance of patience, because there were a lot of times where, especially during that job, I was being underpaid. So I felt like I was desperate to find anything. I was like, even though I knew at a certain point what career pivot I wanted to make, I was like, well, if this job is offering me more money and I need more money, then let me just take it. And being so like eager for that versus you don't even want to do that. This is another healthcare related job that you don't want to do, but you want more money and you're pressed for it. And so I also had to go through that cycle of just, you need to be patient and be diligent about what you're actually seeking, and it will come to you, but you again have to do well with what you have now and know that your turn is coming. So even though that period was difficult, and I think I stayed at that job too long, truthfully, in retrospect, I was being prepared for this next moment. And the way that things segued for me to get this job opportunity now, it was divine. So it was like, it couldn't have happened any sooner. It couldn't have happened any other way. And you had to experience that in order to appreciate where you're at now.
Yeah.
And to also even have these lessons that I'm telling you. So it was a difficult season. And for people who are going through the waiting season, it's easier said than done. But every season has an end. So even though I experienced it, I was able to transition, and there was, a timeline of like, you're not going to experience this forever, but you do need to do good work while you're here, have a good attitude, and be a good steward over what you have. And God will bless that in other ways.
Janay, you said so much. You said so much in that, not so much as in lengthy. I mean, you said so many good things, or so many gems were inside of, just your learning lesson of being at the healthcare company before you transition into entertainment. And I think it's so important that while you are in your waiting season, like you said, is to look back and realize all the lessons that you learned, because it's setting you up for what you're asking for. Right. But some people might see it as like, I don't want to be here. I don't like this company. No, you're getting set up for something that is purposeful and bigger than what you can even imagine. Right. So I do want to go back to, your idea of being in this waiting season. I'm pretty sure you didn't arrive to this idea and landing on this revelation so quickly. So what did it feel like for you in the beginning stages of being frustrated? I know you touched upon, the impatience settling in, feeling almost nearly desperate to leave, that you'll, just because another job offers you more, you'll take it, even though it might not be the right fit for you. So what were the beginning stages of how you felt during that season?
I think it was a lot of like internal turmoil, because we're human at the end of the day. So like you can't ignore what you see, right? You're seeing other people get promotions. You're seeing other people progress in their career. You're seeing people thrive in other areas where when you're stuck and when you're in that waiting season, things don't feel good. Things don't look good. And you're really struggling to find like levels of optimism. So I think for me, the beginning feelings were really like confusion, hurt, and a little bit of anger too, and like jealousy. Because I think once I'm seeing other opportunities come where it's like, I feel like I deserve mine so bad. And I think God also humbled me in that season too, because as a person who's a high achiever, who honestly, not in like a self-righteous way, but I've usually worked hard for things and they have worked out, or I've gotten opportunities, or it's like I knew how to hustle for internships, so I always had an internship. And so that was the first time, I think, where I really thought like I was doing something, to be quite frank, and I didn't get rewarded for it. And it was like, I'm putting all this work in. I'm doing what they asked me to do. I'm getting good feedback. I'm being told I'm doing a great job, but it's like, you're not getting exactly what you want. And so when you're seeing it happen for other people, after a certain point, you reach a threshold of like, when is mine going to come? And I think that's where a lot of these emotions, like when I really realized like, oh, you're stuck in it, that's when those emotions started to kind of bleed through. And even though those aren't even really characteristics of my everyday personality, I was in a phase where I was just so jaded and, you know, frustrated that I think a lot of things were clouded and then other emotions were bubbling up. So it was really tough, to be honest. And I empathize with people who are going through it, because you don't really, you think you're doing as much as you can possibly do, but you're not seeing a change. So you just feel stuck and you're like, what's it going to take? What's it going to give? You know?
Yeah. And so what steps did you take to really like, look inward and be like, okay, obviously this is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
So where did the is it the healing, or when did your perception change? When did you have to reframe your mind in order to usher yourself out of that and be prepared for the next thing and not get caught up on the, I'm not getting what I want here, and being in the cycle of,
Yeah.
is the word complaining? I don't want to say complaining, but
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
yeah. So how did you usher yourself out of that?
I would say, again, this was rooted out of like, not a negative emotion, but just like a frustrated emotion. I kind of hit my like fed up phase, basically, is what happened, where I was like, in again, two-sided of something's got to change, but also like, what am I doing to make it change? And this is the piece that I think is really important for people to understand when you're in that waiting season. And this is something where I think the mindset shift for me was like, instead of, I think people say like, instead of why, asking yourself, why is this happening to me, like asking yourself, what does this mean for me, or like, what am I supposed to learn out of this experience? So I think for me, I was like almost 2.5 years into the role, and I got to a point where I was just frustrated. Like, I think someone else had gotten a promotion over me. They kind of pushed back my next raise or promotion, but I had more work being put on my plate because I was doing well. And so basically, I realized I wasn't going to get what I needed from that job. And it was getting to a point where there was an expiration date coming, and I knew and I felt it. And I was in that in between. It just wasn't clear of like, when exactly is the moment going to be? So I knew I was kind of on that cusp of like, something has to change. I'm at a place where like, I will do whatever I have to do to get to the next phase. But I also feel like that change is coming. And so I really started channeling the energy that I was feeling frustration from work into outside outlets, which is why I do think it's important that you have passion projects, you have, outside partnerships or whatever that you're involved in, volunteer opportunities, whatever it is, freelance work. You have to have an outlet. One, because I don't believe your career should be tied to your identity. Our jobs shouldn't make up the majority of our identity. But also, as we know now with layoffs and everything, these jobs can be fleeting. So you have to have other things that add substance to you, or just creative outlets when maybe sometimes your job is just your job where you collect a check and then you have an outlet. And so for me, it was like, okay, I'm not getting what I want. I know now I want to transition into events and community organizing. And that's something where I'm really passionate about it. And I started doing just that. So I started volunteering, taking freelance roles, doing volunteer opportunities, joining like women's groups and like leadership boards for community organizations and event curation. I also started like hosting events and parties and really just putting myself out there. I also started telling people what I wanted to do, which is very important. Because I also realized I was fearful to tell people because I didn't feel like I was qualified, because I didn't have any experience on my resume. But it's like, you've always been an organizer. You've always curated experiences. You've always curated events. You've been a part of organizations, and that is also in you. It's just you're not doing it on a day-to-day basis. So I basically started seeking out opportunities that would allow me to have that outlet. And when I tell you, over the course of, because that was 2023, basically at the top of 2023, I was like, something's got to give. So I started again hustling, getting opportunities, networking, hosting parties, volunteering, freelancing, and it just snowballed. And that helped me get connections to other things. It helped me meet venue owners. It helped me meet managers. It helped me meet DJs. It helped me meet, other community organizers who were doing events and were willing to like help me and put me on. And that was really my outlet. And so I feel like that, in conjunction with me finally being like, if you don't sit down and update this resume, like, girl, you want a job so bad, but you can't even apply for a job. So
Period. Yeah.
it's just like, again, how I see it is, again, from a spiritual standpoint, God gives us free will, and as humans, we have free will to do a lot of different things. And yes, we have situations and circumstances that put us in a certain phase of life, but we do have a lot of power within ourselves to take action. And they always say faith without works is dead, and I truly believe that, because you can have the faith and have a vision, but if you're not doing anything to get yourself any closer to it, it's literally not going to happen. And so that was like my faith and works moment, where I was like, I want this so bad that I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but also I need to take stock of what I'm actually doing to get there. And so that to me was the works of like putting myself out there, hustling, updating my resume, starting to tell people what I wanted to do, reaching out to people, doing coffee chats. And literally that is what set me up, because between that time frame of like top of 2023 into the fall, when I started applying for jobs seriously, the recruiter for my now job had reached out literally within a month of me updating my resume. So it was like, this is all it took. Well, obviously, in that moment, you're not thinking, or in that season, you're not thinking that. It's just, that was the aha moment for me of like, what are you doing to put the work in to get here? Me finally taking that step to put myself out there fully. And then I'm telling you, within the last 3 months of the year, that's when I got the job opportunity and like was going through the interview process and all of that. And by December, I had secured this job opportunity for January 2024. And
Wow.
so it was just, that to me was like one of my moments where I'm like, okay, God, like things are really moving, but I see what you mean when like we have to have faith and we have to take action. And one other piece, which I think is very, very important, is writing things down. Because during this time frame, I also made basically a list, or prayer list, or whatever you want to call it, where I had wrote down what was going to happen and when, or what I wanted to happen and when. And on that list, I wish I brought my notebook, but on that list, I had put by Q1 of 2024, I would be in a new position with X, Y, and Z listed. And when I tell you I got everything that I had prayed for,
Wow.
that happened. But it was also a matter of the works. I was doing the works, and I was putting myself in a position where I realized in retrospect now, God was like, okay, you're ready. So it's, again, going back to like, we can want something so bad, we can desire it, but what are you doing to put yourself in a position to be ready to receive it? And that was the biggest lesson I learned in this season.
Ooh, Janay. I need you to get like a podium. I need you to get a podium, and I need you to just preach, because
no, it's serious.
You are saying the right thing. Like, you are saying everything that I feel that people need to possess. Even myself, we're all not perfect.
Yeah.
And I just think the revelation that you've been able to bring out of your season of really just trying, girl, that is a testimony.
It is my, honestly.
It's powerful. And I can attest to you and your networking skills. I saw them up close and personal when you came to DC. I think this was when we met.
Yes, it was.
Yes, you came to DC, girl, and you were hustling at the Color Vision event. We were all volunteers,
girl,
and you were moving, like you was moving the room. The text message, we had a whole group chat. You were like organizing everything, and I said, I like her energy, because you know how to walk into a space, and when you are determined to get something, you get it. And I watched that happen in real time. So I'm not surprised that you were able to turn everything around for yourself and walk into this season of now receiving all the blessings that you are receiving. You knew what you wanted. You went and you got it. You did the work. You did the inner work, I'm sure, and you did the outer work, and you made things happen for yourself. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You are preaching to me. I'm being inspired by your story, because that is... There's nothing that we'll be able to receive in this earth that we're supposed to sustain if we don't do the work.
Yes. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I just, I do believe that we are given gifts and talents. But one thing that I was told like a couple years ago is that God will give you gifts, but if you squander it, you can lose it. And I always said to myself, I never want to lose my gifts, because when you're in that season where you're out of touch, or you feel disconnected, or you're out of it, or you're depressed, or you're just not yourself, it's not a good feeling. We know that. So knowing that and having experienced that, I don't ever want to get close to it. But to your point, it comes down to how bad do you want it and what are you willing to do to get there? Because you see all these like things about success and like the steps and blah blah blah, but like genuinely, I do think for me it was a mindset thing of like, if you really want it to happen, what are you actually doing to get closer to it? And that can go for anything. That can be for your physical health, your career, your relationships. Like if you want to move somewhere, it really takes a certain level of determination, to your point of you're locking in for real and you're deciding, I'm going to do something about this in order to make a change. And I think once you have that attitude, nothing can stop you, truthfully.
Not at all. And I got to see it in action. And so that girl, everything you are preaching, I can say that I was a firsthand person that saw you put your plan in action. I might not have knew the full scope of what you were experiencing, but I saw the fire and I saw the determination. And what's so interesting is that when I saw you, I was in my season of like stillness. Nothing was moving for me.
Yeah, and I remember we talked about that.
Yes, I couldn't get a job nowhere. My resume is stacked, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Nothing was happening for me. Nothing was shaking up. And it's so funny you brought up what happens when you don't use your gift. That's exactly what was happening to me. And unfortunately, this is my gift. It has nothing to do with what my role in my job is, right? But this was my gift. And the moment that I stopped doing this, it was like a trickle effect. Everything in my life started to unravel. Everything in my life. And of course, I couldn't land there without going through all the things that I experienced and getting here now, right? So now I look back and I'm like, dang, like it really started from me not having a mic or me not doing what I came to DC to do, which is to go to school, get my education in broadcast journalism and do this the way that, I've always imagined and the way that I feel is right for me, right? And it was just a trickle down effect, but don't want to make it about me, but I can attest to that and what happens when you don't use your gift. And so now and I feel like one of your gifts is leading and curating community and doing all the things. So I would love to go into, your organization or how do you describe it?
Well, I would say, I don't know, sometimes I go between like collective organization, community organization, community group. But it really is about creating experiences and building communities. So I started a collective called Curated Conversations officially last year. And my whole focus is, I realized, and I know that you could probably also understand this, like a lot of people have told me, and even from my own experiences, finding friendship in adulthood is hard. Whether you're transitioning to a new city, whether you're moving back home, whether you already have community and you're just building up on it, it's very difficult to build, find, and sustain community, regardless of what phase of life you're in. And then depending on the phase, it can be even harder. So for me, I've been very blessed to have good, strong, consistent community, especially even when I moved to New York. I have no family here, no main connections. I had like some Greek life connections, some alumni connections, but barely. And so when I came here and to see, because people are always shocked, like, how do you know so many people? And I'm like, it was literally going back to what you said about the hustling. I was networking. I was going to stuff by myself. I was going to all these random events and like just introducing myself. And thankfully, God connected me to the right people, or I got connected to people who connected me to the right people. And it was just a trickle effect. But I've realized there's a really big gap now, especially post-COVID, where people are struggling and craving intimate community and connections. And I think, even other layers, right, of like party culture shifting. We're also in an older age group now where we're not young 20s. Some of us are late 20s, early 30s, but we still want to socialize. We still want to meet people. We still want to find community. We still want to find interests and common hobbies that we, can connect on. And so this really started from me, like having get-togethers, having birthday parties, having rooftop parties, and realizing like my friends are becoming friends. And I would always get comments of like, oh, your friends are so nice, or like, you have such great community, or like, I felt so welcomed, or I came solo and I left with a friend. And those are things that really fill me up, because I also take connecting people seriously. Like, I think that's one of my gifts on a spiritual level, where I know a part of my purpose is to connect people.
Yeah.
So this was really an idea that's been sitting in my head for a while. And then I think last year into this year was like, you really got to move on this. Like, you can't keep sitting again on your gifts and your ideas. And so I've officially started the collective, and, under the guise of Curated Conversations, to start building and organizing community events. But in tandem, I'm also really passionate about supporting small, local, and minority owned businesses. Because one thing, I think this is happening everywhere, to be honest, with gentrification and just where our society is headed. But in New York and Brooklyn specifically, a lot of Black owned businesses are closing at like a very scary rate. So places,
Yeah, I've seen like a few TikToks of people or restaurants like
yes,
asking for donations or
yes,
please come by. We're closing in X amount of time. Yeah, it's happening at a rapid speed for
it
sure.
is. It is. And so also noticing like spots that I was going to closing that are no longer there, and now being like, okay, I feel like I'm going through a personal shift socially through my community. And then also, where am I supposed to go now? Like, I'm not really trying to go to the club like that. Like, I like a nice wine bar. Like a nice lounge. Like, where are those places? But also, my spots are closing. So it was birthed out of wanting to help facilitate and build community for other young people, but also wanting to make a community and social impact of how are we using our influence in a positive way? Because everybody wants to say they're an influencer, but like, how are you using your influence for real?
Mm-hmm.
And also, as a transplant and someone who's not from New York, and as we've moved from different places, there's a big conversation too about like transplants kind of messing up the vibes, or like, infiltrating certain spaces and not really contributing much besides being there. And that's something where I'm like, I love my community. I love my neighbors. I make sure to shop in my neighborhood. I shop local. Like, I support Black businesses in my area, and I really try to be a champion of those. So I want to make sure that other people are not only building community, but where are we doing it at? So it's like, maybe I have a happy hour, but it's at a Black owned wine bar. Or one of my events I had this year, a friend of mine owns a record shop right down the block, and he's a Black guy, amazing. I met him just through like the party scene, and he opened his own spot, and he does this event every Monday called Mixer Mondays. And so he's like, would you like to host an event there? And I said, why not? So I brought my community, and now I have people going back and buying records and patronizing his business. And that's literally the cycle that I want to create. It's like, help facilitate and build community, but also make sure that we're using our dollars, our influence, and our impact to help our own community in a positive way. And, also expose people to new brands and businesses that they might not know before. So that's really the whole goal of what I'm trying to do. And again, back to what I said about why it's important to have passions that you're pursuing, this is something that fills me up in a different way than my job could ever, So I think it's important for us to think about what impact are we making in our spheres of influence, and, acting on that, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, and I want to know because there's so many different collectives, event groups, and all the things. So what do you feel makes Curated Conversations so different from any other collective or org group that's out there that does something similar to what you do?
I think because we're rooted in a certain level of authenticity, and it's not exclusive, right? Like, this is no shade to any groups or people listening or watching, but I do think with this rise of like these collectives, these groups, these clubs, a lot of it is still rooted in a certain aesthetic, a certain bracket, a certain background, and there's a level of exclusivity and barriers to entry that I don't really love personally. So I want to make sure that my events are accessible. I want to make sure that people feel comfortable and you can show up as you are, whoever you are. You don't have to feel like you're a certain status or a certain background or went to a certain school in order to be accepted. And if you go, you should be able to come solo or with a friend, but you will walk away with a positive connection or a positive kind of taste in your mouth of like, I came here and I interacted with good, down to earth, honest, fun, cool, chill people who maybe have certain things in common, maybe don't, but I felt seen. And I didn't feel like I had to put on or be this person or be accepted. So I think what I feel like, at least from the responses I've got, is that it's a very authentic community where you can show up as you are. And there's not that exclusivity and not a lot of the frills that I've noticed that some of the other clubs and organizations have, where you do kind of have to fit a certain mold in order to be accepted, or you have to, do applications and all these things where people are like breaking their neck to get in, where it's like, this is rooted in community. So why are we making it hard, and why are we being particular about what community we're facilitating versus if you have an idea that people are supposed to be a part of, why are there barriers to entry? So I think that's the difference that I hope that Curated Conversations continues to emulate, and what I think that we're rooted in.
And I love that. And not to say there's anything wrong with, the luxury brands or the exclusive
Right,
groups, right?
right,
Because I feel like they're a part of our culture and they serve their purpose. But
correct.
everybody is going for the luxury or the exclusivity of it all, right? And it's probably attached to a price tag. That's
Right,
usually what happens.
right,
But it's good to hear that you've created something and you're curating a space where people can really just come of all walks of life. It doesn't matter who you are.
right.
And you can come, let your hair down, and enjoy yourself and meet people who are like minded, possibly creative or not, and
Yeah,
just have this community of people just to add to, your group chat or something like that.
right.
I love that. I love that. I feel that we in our community, we need the duality of having luxury, but also having like something very authentic, down to earth, and chill.
Yes,
And
yes.
I feel this is more needed than the luxury. I don't know if that is. When you think about events that you enjoy, it's not the stuff that you got to put all the heels on for, put
Oh,
on makeup. It's the stuff where you just come and it's just a good time.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think this is also something else that I've been feeling that I've talked to a lot of friends about, but I think we need to get back to more like low stakes hangouts or like low stakes events where it's like we don't always have to get done up, dolled up. We don't always have to be like pressed to be seen, or the photographer's got to be snapping the pics. Like, I'm kind of over again that very hyped party culture, recap video culture where everyone's trying to be in the pictures, be in the photos. Like,
Mm.
where can we just have fun and be real? And like, we need spaces now more than ever, in my opinion, where we can just be ourselves. And I think, again, a lot of these environments are catering towards specific types of people, aesthetics, and, brackets where if you don't fit the mold, you're not going to be accepted. And I think that defeats the whole entire purpose of community, because at the end of the day, like, people are coming from wherever they're coming from, and if you're a community organizer, I think part of your responsibility is to create an environment where even if someone is not within your target audience, what if their friend brings them? The friend might be the target, but the person they bring might not be, but they should still feel welcome in that space and find some type of level or connection for themselves. So I think we just have to get back to having fun events that anyone can attend. And just places where like you don't have to come, like you say, you don't have to come dolled up, you don't have to come with your best fit. Like, you could just come kick it with cool people who also want to have a good time, and are also looking for genuine friendship. And we all know, like, when you think about like college or other experiences, the best memories you ever had were just your friend coming over and y'all just hanging out for hours, or
Yeah.
doing nothing. And those are the things I think we need to get back to, on that level of that, I don't know, just that level of authenticity of like, you can just show up as you are and you'll still be accepted, or you'll be able to find somebody who will accept you. And I think that's my big thing, is like, you don't have to connect with everybody. That's not realistic, even at a networking event or whatever, but you should be able to walk away with at least one connection. And that is something that I strive to create in the environments that I'm building through, curated conversations.
What are you hoping for the future of the brand? What's the vision that you have in mind when you think 5 years from now, maybe even 10? I don't know if you've gotten that far. What is your vision for curated conversations?
I think in 5 years, I would like to have like subsets and groups that are very niche in terms of like, we're doing group trips, we're doing outings, we have community partnerships established where you can connect with brands or community groups that you're also interested in. I think a big part of what I'm looking to establish this year is community partnerships. So I would say in 5 years, I want to be recognized as a community name, a community group that is well known, not just in Brooklyn, but also outside of that, and has multiple partnerships with brands, businesses in different cities, other collectives. We've organized events, trips, major events. We've partnered with groups to do events, to be sponsors. So I think for me, it's about, my hope would be in the next couple of years to be a name that's known in this collective space, but differentiated in the sense that, like, wow, they really started something that was real and it continues to be real even if it scales. But we're rooted in the community and actually have relationships with partners and well-known businesses or up-and-coming businesses in different cities and areas, and brands as well. And then really focusing on keeping the heart of what we try to do, which is curating intimate experiences. But I would love to do activations and pop-ups in different cities. Like, I have like random dreams or like daydreams or visions of where I see certain things.
Mhm.
And I had like a daydream about like doing something basically in my hometown of Raleigh, North Carolina,
Oh.
where I basically did like a Curated Conversations tour. And I was going to different cities and stops where we're curating events, conversations like this, with other community organizers about how to build authentic community. And we're doing activations. We might be doing a conference or a festival and partnering with brands. That's something where I really could see happening for the collective. So that's where I would love to be. I also would love for it to be lucrative, just like everyone else. So I
Right.
do also see a world where, people can subscribe and be a part of different parts of the group, but it's still going to, at the heart, be accessible when it comes to like our general events. So yeah, that's a little bit of where I think my head is at. At least 10, we can't think that far, but 5.
I know I was overdoing it with the 10 years. Okay.
Okay.
There's some girls who are very much 10-year planned.
Which
They
I'm not gonna lie, I am
know?
one of them. I am one of them. So I'm like, but I will say I at least know that this year was the year I decided it's time to get serious about where can I take this? How can I establish it? What is it going to be rooted in? And what foundations are we building now so that in the next 5 years, we can get to a point where I can, tell you that some of these things happened or you get to see them come to fruition. So I am excited about where it's headed. And I think I haven't felt this like passionate about something in a really long time. So it does feel good to be like, I do feel like I'm walking my purpose and I'm doing something that's meaningful and impactful. And I'm seeing the results of it. And people are telling me like, I came to an event solo and I made a friend. And I'm like, if nothing else, I did my job. You met a person, you made a connection, and I facilitated that. And that is a part of what I know that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So as I'm going to try my hardest to keep it rooted in that, regardless of where it goes, God willing, it does blow up. But I don't ever want to lose the heart of it, which is like, come, make a friend, find a friend, be yourself, show up, and you will find somebody who is for you.
Wow. Well, Janay, I can't wait for you to do one in DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will be there.
It's
And
coming.
if you need help, let me know.
I definitely will, because it's coming. It's coming.
Yes, because I know you have a network here for sure. So
Yeah.
and you got people that will show up, and DC loves a good community event.
Yes, seriously.
Whatever format, they don't care. They'll come out.
No, seriously. I've been seeing a
Yes.
lot of good things. And it's so funny because I always say, like, y'all really trying to make me move to the DMV so bad. Like,
Come
so
on
bad.
then. Come on then. I love it. I have been converting the girls one by one. I have a good friend of mine that is in the middle of making her transition to DC.
Wow, I love that.
So if you don't want to get, persuaded to come here, don't talk to me. But
We'll see. Y'all working on me. Y'all working on me good. And I love it too because, people like you guys are doing great work. Like, I think I have to also, because, we got to give the girls flowers. So I'm just like, I'm grateful for you for creating a platform like this that, again, allows us to have real conversations, to be seen, to talk about our journey in a way that is authentic and not just the cutesy parts of it, right?
Yeah.
Like the real deal, and also inspire people in a way that shows you can do it too. Because I think you've used your voice in a really positive way to not only spotlight people, but to take them along the journey with you. And I think that's something we also want to see. Because I was like, I gotta be on this because my girl, she was going places. And like, I'm just honored to even be a part of it because I can see the vision that you have and the passion that you have for this. And I'm like, those are the types of people I want to be connected to. So I'm really excited for the conversations you're having, to stay tapped in, to see where this goes, because I really think you have a great idea and a great spirit for it. Again, that's rooted in authenticity, genuineness, and a care for people and telling stories, which I think a lot of people do that, right, in a lot of different platforms, but I think you're doing it in a different spirit and energy that I just haven't seen. So I felt very compelled of like, even if she don't ask me, can I be on here?
I love it. I love it because when you're creating things like this, you're not thinking of everything all at one time, right?
Right.
So I'm in the middle of just trying to get the doggone thing out there. And you reached out to me. I said, "Oh, period, absolutely." I was already looking at you anyway, but I hadn't gotten there yet. So I love the energy. I love it, and I love what you are doing. And I think it's so important, like I said earlier, for creatives to learn how to create community while they are on their journey to wherever they feel like they want to go, because you can't do it alone. I want to thank you for coming on No Holding Back, the podcast, and taking the time out to drop your gems. And hopefully the audience at home will be able to pull something out of this and to be able to apply it to their life.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Taylor. This has been great.
You're very welcome.